A reading of E M Forster's review of Jane Austen's novels, published in the New Republic on the 30th of January 1924. Jane, how shall we ever recollect? It's a quotation by Miss Bates in Emma. I am a Jane Austenite, and therefore slightly imbecile about Jane Austen. My fatuous expression and airs of personal immunity, how ill they set on the face, say, of a Stevensonian. But Jane Austen is so different. One's favourite author. One reads and rereads, the mouth open and the mind closed. Shut up in measureless content, one greets her by the name of most kind hostess, while criticism slumbers. The Jane Austenite possesses none of the brightness he ascribes to his idol. Like all regular churchgoers, he scarcely notices what is being said. For instance, the grammar of the following sentence from Mansfield Park presents no difficulty to him. And alas, how always known no principle to supply as a duty what the heart was deficient in. Nor does he notice any flatness in the second chapter of Pride and Prejudice. Kitty has no discretion in her coughs, said her father. She times them ill. I do not cough for your amusement, replied Kitty fretfully. When is your next ball to be, Lizzie? We might note here that actually Kitty says, I do not cough for my own amusement, but anyway. Why should Kitty ask what she must have known? And why does she say your ball when she was going to it herself? Something is amiss in the text, but the loyal adorer will never detect it. He reads and rereads. And this fine new edition has, among its other merits, the great merit of waking the Jane Austenite up. After reading its notes and appendices, after a single glance at its illustrations, one will never relapse again into the primal stupor. Without violence, the spell has been broken. The 6 princesses remain on their sofas, but their eyelids quiver and they move their hands. Their 12 suitors do likewise, and their subordinates stir in the seats to which humour or propriety assigned them. The novels continue to live their own wonderful internal life, but it has been freshened and enriched by contact with the life of facts. To promote this contact is the chief function of an editor, and Mr. Chapman fulfills this. All his erudition and taste contribute to this end. His extracts from Mrs. Radcliffe and Mrs. Inchbald, his disquisitions on punctuation and travel. Even his textual criticism helps. Observe his brilliant solution of the second of the 2 difficulties quoted above. He has noticed that in the original edition of Pride and Prejudice, the words, "When is your next ball to be, Lizzie?" begin a line, and he suggests that the printer failed to indent them, and, in consequence, they are not Kitty's words at all, but her father's. And here is the first edition of Pride and Prejudice, published by Egerton in 1813. I do not cough for my own amusement, replied Kitty fretfully. When is your next ball to be, Lizzie? It is a tiny point, yet how it stirs the pools of complacency. Mr. Bennet, not Kitty, is speaking, and all these years one had never known. The dialogue lights up and sends little sparks of fire into the main mass of novel. And so, to a lesser degree, with the sentence from Mansfield Park. Here we amend how always known into now all was known. And this is the first edition of Mansfield Park, published by Egerton in 1814. Now she was angry. Some resentment did arise at a perseverance so selfish and ungenerous. Here was again a want of delicacy and regard for others, which had formerly so struck and disgusted her. Here was again a something of the same Mr. Crawford whom she had so reprobated before. How evidently was there a gross want of feeling and humanity where his own pleasure was concerned, and Alas, now all was known. No principle to supply as a duty what the heart was deficient in. And the sentence not only makes sense, but illumines its surroundings. Fanny is meditating on the character of Crawford, and now that all is known to her, she condemns it. And finally, what a light is thrown on Jane Austen's own character by a collation of the two editions of Sense and Sensibility. In the 1811 edition we read, "Lady Middleton's delicacy was shocked, and in order to banish so improper a subject as the mention of a natural daughter, she actually took the trouble of saying something herself about the weather." In the 1813 second edition, the sentence is omitted. In the interests of propriety, the authoress is moving away from the 18th century into the 19th, from love and friendship towards persuasion. Yet, with all the help in the world, with a fine edition like Mr. Chapman's and the best of literary criticism to our aid, how shall we drag these shy, proud books into the centre of our minds, to be one with Jane Austen? It is a contradiction in terms, yet every Jane Austenite has made the attempt. When the humour has been absorbed and the cynicism and moral earnestness both discounted, something remains which is easily called life, but does not thus become more approachable. It is the books rather than the author that seem to elude us, natural enough since the books are literature. Dear Jane, however shall we recollect half the dishes? For, though the banquet was not long, it has never been assimilated to our minds. Miss Bates, it will be remembered, received no answer to her portentous question. Her dear Jane was thinking of something else. The dishes were carried off before she could memorise them, and heaven knows now what they contained. Strawberries from Donwell, perhaps, or apricots from Mansfield Rectory, or sugar plums from Barton, or hothouse grapes from Pemberley, or melted butter from Woodstone, or the hazelnuts that Captain Wentworth once picked for Louisa Musgrove in a double hedgerow near Uppercross. E M Forster. A review of the Novels of Jane Austen by E M Forster.